guys, and welcome back to another video, and today we are going to be looking at a scenario where every single nuclear powered country with nuclear weapons is dissolved. Throughout history I tried to make this somewhat accurate, but to be honest it would have never happened. The USA has been severely reduced, with them losing 1812, they don't own Oregon, Alaska or Hawaii, and never won the Mexican-American War. Russia has been battered by multiple civil wars, although we do have one real winner here, and that is of course Mongolia, who gained land out of both China and Russia's collapse. China has been divided up completely. They have northern, central, southern China. It is not looking great. Manchuria, of course. Tibet. It is just not ideal. And as for India, well, India's been turned into what they probably would have in real life if not for the British, and that is a bunch of separate states. We of course have Bengal, the northern Hindu, most populated regions. Pakistan has been divided into north and south. Afghanistan has been heavily expanded, as has Iran. And southern India just has a few semi-consolidated Indian states. If you ask me, the one who has suffered the most is Israel. If you look here, you might think, oh yeah, Israel's still okay. That is not Israel, that is Palestine. In fact, Israel is all the way down here. If you didn't know, there's a plan, probably not gonna happen ever, but to move Israel to Madagascar. So this part of northern Madagascar is now what is left of Israel. Israel in our timeline has been divided by Palestine, Egypt, and of course Syria. Other countries who have suffered is North Korea, who was annexed by South Korea. South Korea also gained lands in China, just because I wanted to make big Korea. Japan has also gained into Russia, controlling much of eastern Russia, next to the Far East Siberian Republic. Kazakhstan is of course expanded. We have big Ukraine. Caucasus Mountain region, southern Russia in general, has gotten their independence. Estonia big, Finland big, democratic versus authoritarian Russia, etc. So yeah, I believe I got every nuclear power, at least the main ones. Of course some other countries do use nuclear power, just no nuclear bombs. There's nobody left in this world who could just push a button and destroy it. With that, let's go ahead and begin with the most interesting candidates here. Of course, the United States of America. The number one superpower in our world has been divided and destroyed. Its most powerful states, Texas and California, have been ripped away from them, along with New England, another very wealthy region. They still control New York, they still control DC, and they still control a lot of the Great Lakes region, but they are very much so destroyed. In fact, the first war I'm going to have here is the American Civil War V2 between the northern and the southern states. The USA here, terrible situation. They simply want to reunite and maybe have a chance of reclaiming some form of title, some form of strength, as in the end, a united America is by far the most powerful. Near the beginning of the war, obviously the North is going to have the immediate advantage, pushing down the Virginian coastline, whilst also beginning to push down the Mississippi River. Meanwhile, the blue team is going to try and push into Oklahoman lands, as they can't really do much. They're on the defensive here, but they do notice a weakness in the line, and they go for it. Meanwhile, the North is going to continue their attacks all across the border, especially in the north, where they capture most of Virginia, and continue down south into North Carolina. Honestly, the southern states here, they aren't even really fighting. Their government wants to stay independent, but the people really do want to reunite, and as soon as New Orleans falls, the people have made their choice. There's draft dodging everywhere, and with the fall of Atlanta, the blue team will be surrendering here. They really just see no point in fighting, as they consider themselves Americans, despite their divide. With this, we see a very powerful America already rising back up from, what happened to them. Next up is China, who's also going to start to do something, as we have communist China and then some more democratic ones. Not completely democratic, very authoritarian, but more liberal than the communists at least. And they are going to form up a kind of pact, as this central Chinese state, which I think the southern state is basically Taiwan. The central state is more of a nationalist China that fell during the Chinese Civil War. So yeah, they are most probably going to unite as long as central China agrees to certain reforms. This is basically now Taiwan, but much, much bigger. As for India, well, they're not going to unite just yet, but Afghanistan is definitely well off. Moving over here to Arabia, I actually see it being a lot more peaceful without Israel. Of course, they still have a lot of problems, especially with the borders. There's no way that the fighting would stop. There's still a Syrian civil war, a crisis in Yemen, and these two who don't exactly have the best of relations. And of course, these guys, and here, here. It is still not a very fun area to be in, but it is definitely better, as they have much more in common. Down here in Africa, Israel, I still see them becoming more powerful than the other African states. I mean, this isn't exactly the most perfect of land that they had to use in our world, and they managed it very, very well. So they would most likely be just fine as well. Over here, we see a divided up UK. Now, as you might notice, this isn't just the division of the UK, but it is actually a weakened England, because if not, England would just reconquer. It's actually somewhere more along these lines, but I had to at least somewhat weaken England, as they are by far the most powerful in the British Isles. That's just a fact. We have Normandy, we have Brittany, I don't know, I saw that in Hoivor. Not completely accurate, but I wanted to divide up the French somewhat more. Alsace-Lorraine, Italy gains back their land, big Belgium. Actually, let's make Belgium bigger. I don't know what would happen with them here. They're definitely much more French dominated, as the Dutch parts are now outnumbered thanks to the new lands that Belgium has annexed. I don't know what Belgium would do here, but they'd probably just stay along the lines of what they have already. Let's get into, I want to say some wars, but this would be a very interesting place for wars to happen. As we don't have any of our three superpowers, so without Russia to instigate it, who would start a war? Well, I guess we can look towards the Middle East for that. Although they are much, as I said, somewhat more peaceful than in our world, Iran still has some ambitions. And soon enough, they are going to go to war with Afghanistan. Afghanistan may not be on the best of relations with the other Muslim countries, or anyone else in the world for that matter, but Iran getting stronger isn't what anyone wants, so we're just gonna have to see what happens here. Afghanistan, who is acting all tough with their new land, we soon see is not that strong, as Iran blitzes through southern Afghanistan and previously Pakistani territories, and everyone's scared that Iran's going to be big now. So who's going to join? Of course, Turkey. Turkey is mainly just trying to keep, as I said, Iran from expanding, and they're going to do just fine at that, pushing into northern Iran. Azerbaijan is going to join in on Turkey's side, pushing all the way into northern Iran until they are eventually stopped in the mountains. In fact, they're even slightly pushed back. From here, most likely be a stalemate, as Iran continues to make progress into Afghanistan, whilst Turkey is stuck. Who's going to break the stalemate? Of course, it's Saudi Arabia. The Gulf countries, or just the Arabian countries, decide not to let Iran and Turkey have all the fun, and they decide to join in themselves. In an invasion of Iraq, the Gulf countries declare war, and now the Middle East is, let's just say, thoroughly at war. In Syria, Turkish rebels in the north are very much so dominant. Without Russia to influence it, it's just fun for Turkey. Turkey eventually manages to get a puppet regime, and as weird as this looks, Syria is now on the blue team. Iraq is quickly dead, and although it is mountains, Iran is slowly but surely falling. Naval invasion in the south will assist that. Unluckily for Afghanistan, the blue team here isn't exactly tempting to help them, so they are slowly falling, but they are in their own mountains, and Iran will know what it feels like to have to deal with that. So Afghanistan is just gonna sit here and survive. The Saudi Arabian naval invasion continues to expand, as although it's not the best of terrain, none of Iran is, so they'll have to make do with what they have. They push into oil-rich areas and capture most of the Iranian coast, until eventually Turkey is able to capture Tehran. Protests in Iran strengthen, as, well, they want a better life in the West, and let's just say the Iranian government hasn't exactly been giving their people much food or much of anything, really. They are fully focused on the war, and that causes the people to rebel and the country to fall. Of course, then the blue team begins an invasion of Afghanistan, not giving Afghanistan their land back. The Afghanis are mad, but what are they supposed to do? Managed to recapture some of their land, but overall this war was not very good for them. Now let us see what is going to be the outcome here. It's actually going to be fairly interesting. A new state is going to be set up in southern Iran and Afghanistan. I forgot what they're called, but I know there's a certain group of people in this region. Afghanistan is going to be reset up. Azerbaijan is going to be getting all of northern Iran. Yep, pretty much all of it. Turkey is going to get a slight amount along the border, but yeah, it's all going to Azerbaijan. Turkey's also going to get a slight amount of land over the Iraqi and the Iranian border, while Syria is going to get a slight amount of northern Iraq. Jordan as well, just a small amount of land. Nobody here is really looking to destabilize the region, they just want to kill everyone else. Kuwait gets the coast, which is very useful for them. And that's just about it. Everywhere else, new governments are put in place. Iraq under Saudi Arabia, Iran under Turkey, and Afghanistan on their own. It's definitely a major shift, as, once again, probably the most influential part of this is that the United States of America is gone. The world's police is gone, and that is going to lead to a lot of countries doing what they want. Luckily, none of those countries is Russia or China, but that doesn't mean Russia's not going to try. As here, Russia still controls a lot of their most valuable territories, and they are most definitely looking to expand. This is their best shot to beat the US. And I'm running out of things to say while I color this in. Alright, there we go. So yeah, new country on the map. Middle East, surprisingly stable now. Borders still not perfect, but significantly better. Balance of power is put into place between Saudi Arabia and Turkey, and I doubt too many wars are going to happen here in the near future. Once again, we can go to Russia next, as they're getting a bit power hungry. They want to reunite the Rus under their own leadership and reestablish their rulership. This is going to go fairly easily for them, at least in the beginning, as this small rebellion in northern Russia is fairly weak. They have very little important cities and are mainly just cold, desolate tundra, maybe a few forests in there. At best, I'd give them a few towns before they surrender. Russia is, of course, going to annex all of this territory, strengthening themselves slightly, although not nearly as much as you'd expect. They then start an invasion of the southern Russian region, I guess, near the Caucasus, but not quite there. This invasion goes just about as well as Russia invades, and they manage to take over the entire area, annexing it with ease, as they don't really have much of a problem taking over the populace. Alright, where do we go next? With Russia expanding, everyone is gonna have to pick a side here. In the end, the USA is still fairly powerful, and they are only gonna get stronger. With the Middle East taken care of, the Indian subcontinent is next, where this northern Hindu kingdom would most likely try and reunify at least certain parts of India. They managed to annex a few central states, and the south consolidates into a different entity. Don't ask me what it would be called. I do not know the name for this region, but I do know they have had some form of separate identity in the past. With that, we have two Pakistani kingdoms, the northern Hindus plains and the southern Indian territories, along with Bengal and Sri Lanka on the Indian subcontinent. We also have a fairly strong Tibet. Where do we go next? Well, Far East and Central aren't going to really do anything. In fact, I see Russia reconquering these regions fairly soon. Russia may even attempt a new invasion of Ukraine, but this is a strengthened Ukraine against a weakened Russia. It would not go well for them. Next up is France, who manages to re-annex Brittany, not by war, not Brittany, Normandy, along with the Occitanian Republic. This is simply just France. These people aren't too far off from France. They're French. They don't consider themselves anything different, so that shouldn't be too much of a problem. As for Belgium, they'll probably keep their lands. They may be Belgians, but they are either speaking French or Dutch, so the language is not going to be a barrier there. I gave Kaliningrad to Germany. I don't know why. I think I just wanted it to make some more sense historically. I guess I could have given it to Poland. I don't know. Could have. Finland's big. I like that for sure. Where do we go next? Perhaps down here to the Caucasus, where Azerbaijan is now by far the dominant force, which means in the next Azerbaijani-Armenian conflict, which will not take very long, Azerbaijan crushes Armenia, absolutely destroys them, annexes all of the south and puppets the rest under an Azeri regime. Georgia's just gonna sit there, you know? They don't have too many problems without Russia to support their groups. They will be fine. Moldova joins Romania. Just kind of a side thing there. And let's go back over to China, where the civil war will resume. If you hadn't noticed yet, I'm mainly focusing on the regions that suffered the most from this. Just feel like it's the regions that would be most affected. This new Chinese civil war is not going to be like the old one because the communists are much weaker in this scenario. They still control Beijing. They control a lot of important lands, don't get me wrong, but this is heavily one-sided. Although Shandong will fall along with a decent amount of central China before the, Democrats, just the more liberal south starts to push them back. The north are eventually fully pushed out, whilst in the center, the blues are going to make some progress. Beijing is nearing capture, whilst the communists are cut in half, and soon enough, they are forced into surrendering, and China is once more. Doubt they would try to expand much, as they're fairly weak. They have gone through multiple wars, and they're still just trying to recover. Korea might have a problem though, and that's due to all of the Manchus who are here. You know what? They are just gonna have to deal with that. We could go to Africa, but since they're not affected, I won't be, and instead we'll go to the Americas. Let's look at the USA again. What is the USA to do? They could attack Canada. They'd most likely win, but it wouldn't exactly be an easy war. Canada has gained Washington, Oregon, Northern California, going into Montana, North Dakota. They've gained much of New England, and the USA has still lost many territories that were annexed from Mexico, and a fair amount to Canada. So I don't think they'd be looking forward to doing that either. I do not really know who would take over this world. There really aren't any main superpowers left for which alliances would take place. I'm sure some form of EU-like state would happen. Scotland would obviously join, and this would most likely grow quickly, as France and Germany, despite maybe being on a bit worse of terms in this scenario due to Alsace, they would still work together just to make some form of working organization. Benelux would of course join as well, Brittany would join, and Italy would join. This is a smaller, more compact EU, but they are definitely open to new members that start now, including Denmark, Sweden, We see all of the Baltics joining in, and soon enough we even see Poland joining in. Bulgaria and Romania, Croatia, and yeah, this is just going to continue to grow in the background. Portugal joins, Spain joins. I'll just continuously add to that. Another alliance we might see pop up is some form of Russian Confederation, an anti-EU, so to speak. This is the Russians trying to get back on their feet. They've already expanded, but they want to expand more. They will immediately get Belarus on their side. They will also invade down into the Caucasus, setting up puppet regimes in these states. Hope, if they're in their eyes, hopefully eventually to annex them. Soon enough, they also invade this more central Russian state. Doesn't really stand a chance, and it's going to be divided up. There are lands that will be annexed by Russia, and the rest will be put as a puppet, as Russia isn't looking to stir up too much trouble, at least not yet. Most definitely want to, but in the process I've removed all nuclear bombs, which means in a war Russia would definitely lose. They have no advantage, at least not yet, so instead they just choose to grow their influence into Central Asia. So into Central Asia they go. They quickly stage a coup in Tajikistan, and Turkmenistan willingly joins. After a short invasion of Kazakhstan, Kazakhstanis are split as Russia takes certain lands, whilst the rest of Kazakhstan is turned into a Russian client state. This is Russian, basically, expansion at the max, and if I haven't mentioned before, this is not meant to be realistic. This is just a fun outlook on how things could have gone. Here we go, very quickly, new Russian state being put in power, with them quickly expanding into Central Asia and Central Europe and Eastern Europe. Finland, out of fear of Russia, is soon going to join, together with Norway, as this EU is now seen as the new NATO, without the US leading it. This is a more independent European-wide association. More and more nations are joining, including Austria and Greece. Just coloring Greece, they have like a billion islands. Okay, there we go. What's next? Well, let's go ahead and make a few more alliances in this world. Next up, let's make Green Alliance over here in East Africa. Without the DRC, sadly, although it would, well, at least eventually expand to Ethiopia. They basically just changed the DRC for Ethiopia due to a civil war in the Democratic People's Republic of the Congo. From here, there are obviously multiple options to what could happen, but I think I'll leave it here. There are definitely some new things at play, and a lot of things could happen, especially a major war in I guess, Europe/Eurasia. With that, I do hope you enjoyed, and let me know if you want to see part 2. Bye.